basically. And I mean, you see this all the time in with people just going to another country as a tourist. They tend to go to places where they feel comfortable, places where people speak their language, if possible. It's not possible if you're Swedish, of course, but if you're American, you can go to other countries where they speak English, or go to parts of countries where they speak English. Americans are well known for going to foreign countries and eat at McDonald's. I mean, it makes sense. You hang with the people that you like and respect, and people who think the way you do. I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, there can be clashes between groups, but only if they're forced to live together. Voluntary segregation is first of all voluntary, and it's natural. That's what we do.
Many libertarians are constantly telling us that having mass numbers of Islamic immigrants come into Europe is a healthy and good thing. Is it okay for you as a libertarian and a Swede to care about having the cultural makeup of Sweden changed radically?
Well, of course it's okay to care about that. The question is, what do you do about it? And I think it's wrong to adopt some sort of nationalist viewpoint and thinking of the nation state as something that I'm from. I have very little in common with a lot of people in Sweden, part of the reason why I left. But other people are coming to Sweden, and that's fine. I don't see a problem with that at all. The problem could be the sort of clashes that happen after they come and they sit together and they're segregated. But that's also a problem because of the integration policies of the government. In Sweden, Swedish government is notorious for accepting immigrants and refugees, putting them in paid apartments, giving them a check every month and saying, stay there, we're investigating. And then it takes 5 to 10 years or something like that before they learn that, you need to go back. Or maybe, you can stay. But if you're someone from a country where you're used to taking care of yourself and your family, and you're basically locked up in an apartment in a suburb somewhere, which is not as nice as it is in the US, over there, then your spirit, any sort of entrepreneurial spirit that you had before, any personal strength that you had before, completely gone. Because you've been oppressed like crazy because you get this handout and you're not even allowed to do anything else.
When you say you don't have much in common with most Swedes, do you mean because you are libertarian and many Swedes, at least stereotypically, are collectivist?
I guess that's part of it, but I think Swedes, in a sense, Sweden is very, very libertarian in the social or political sense, but not in the economic sense. And Sweden is a very strange case, really. And Swedes would probably agree with you if you just give them some points that are very libertarian. So I wouldn't say that you feel very oppressed as a Swede in Sweden, except for if you do something economically. And of course, you do that all the time. But that's not really what I mean by saying that I'm not like most other Swedes. I would say that I have a different viewpoint. And this is really a cultural thing that most Swedes and most Scandinavians in general, really, they have this view that, well, who do you think you are, basically? It's the law of Jante. It's on Wikipedia for anyone who wants to look it up. It's really a jealousy thing. So you're not supposed to make money. You're not supposed to be successful. You're not supposed to even try much, because people will not respect you for it. People will not like that you're successful. They will hate you for it because you make them look bad. So it's, in that sense, it's very egalitarian. But at the same time, everybody's cheating on their taxes. Everybody's selling and buying goods and services in the black market. Of course they are, because the taxes are so freaking high. But there's some sort of weird morality where cheating on taxes is completely fine, unless you're a celebrity and it's in the media. But accepting handouts from the government without really being eligible, that is not okay.
That's interesting you bring this up, because this idea of striving or conspicuously having more money than your neighbors is also very frowned upon in places like Scotland and Australia. So it's not just a Swedish phenomenon. But in America, this is accepted.
And it's more than accepted, I would say, because at least on the surface. Because if someone is doing something great or has a nice title or a degree or something, people go, wow, yeah, congratulations, that's awesome. Whereas in Sweden, they go, yeah, so what? I mean, who do you think you are?
Well, maybe you're the wrong person to ask, because I agree with you entirely about nationalism and viewing ourselves as members of a nation state. We're anarcho-capitalists. We get that. But devil's advocate, wouldn't something be lost, a nation, not a state, if Sweden were to become 80% North African and Middle East Muslims? Wouldn't the old Sweden be lost? And isn't this something more than just creative destruction and market phenomenon? Wouldn't this be something that the state has engineered, or states working in concert have engineered? Would that not make you sad as a Swede if the Sweden of your childhood was completely obliterated culturally?
It probably would, but those are my personal opinions and my own subjective valuations. It's not really a basis for policy. And I mean, to tell you the truth, Sweden now compared to when I grew up, it's very different. It's different not only because of immigration, but it's different because of cultural changes. It's different because people do different things. People travel a little bit more today. And Sweden is less prosperous today than it was when I grew up. I mean, when I grew up, the government was at its peak. All the benefits were amazing. Everything was free, basically. Today, there are cutbacks because you can't afford it. And that affects how people behave, too, because taxes have been cut, but not all that much. But benefits have been cut even more because the government simply can't afford it. And that's a big part of Swedish society. I mean, the redistribution.
I don't blame non-libertarians for sort of rolling their eyes and saying, look, you guys, we're so far from all of this. Right here, right now, I want a border wall and no more Mexicans. I mean, I think that's wrong, but I get it.
The whole discussion on consequences and public policy and how to deal with one step in one direction or the other, those are completely weird for me as a libertarian. And it's really the example that Walter Block gives as a paradox. And he's done that a few times when I've listened myself. Do we as libertarians add tax rate or lower tax income for the government? Because assuming that the Laffer curve is correct and the tax rate is at the top part, you could lower the rate and that will increase the government's income and vice versa. So what do we do as libertarians? Well, this has nothing to do with libertarian principles to me. This is really a matter of personal opinion. How does it affect you as a person? But the libertarian policy is no tax. It's really that simple, because you can argue back and forth whether the tax rate or what about deductions and things like that, or is it the income to government that matters? Well, it's really how the government uses the funds and so forth. So you can have arguments both ways, and both are really bad as well. And so it's not really a paradox, because we don't want to advocate for certain policies with the federal government or whoever. We want to get rid of it. That's the solution. We don't want to keep chopping a little bit at the branches of evil. We want to strike at the root, get rid of the freaking thing. And I think that's the important point.
And that's why I think Murray was right. Tactically, incrementalism doesn't work for us. It works for progressives.
Well, absolutely. It's like boiling the frog, right? That's incrementalism. You put the frog in the pot on your stove with cold water. If you you increase the heat slowly, and it's going to be boiled alive. But if you try to put the frog in a boiling pot of water, it's going to jump straight out. And it works only one way. Gradualism works, or incrementalism works one way, and works towards bigger government. Because there's always a backside. There's always going to be some sort of misallocation of resources, if you will. If you roll back government one step, or if you add one little piece of government. And we can't support those misallocations either way. That's not the libertarian case. The libertarian case is get rid of it all the inefficiencies gone. Then let's build it anew. That's the libertarian case, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Per, I want to thank you so much for joining us this weekend and dealing with some of these very tough questions. And again, we're not talking about trying to create a utopia. We're trying to talk about dealing with very intractable problems of human migration and poverty in ways that produce the best outcome, not necessarily a perfect outcome. Per, how can people find out more about you or follow you on Twitter? Or I believe you have a website of your own as well.
Yes, I do have a website on my own. That's perbylund.com. perbylund.com. And my Twitter handle is pretty obvious as well, as Perbilent, as Perbilent. And those would probably be the best places to find me.
Be sure to check out Per's article, Refugees and Migrants in a World of Government Meddling, which we ran earlier this week on Mises.org. If you're a libertarian and you're interested in this issue of immigration and the proper libertarian analysis, I guarantee you will find this article to be really foundational, and it might just change your thinking. Per, thanks so much for your time today. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend.